Well, we are officially in the post-Pedro era of The Last of Us as Ellie deals with the fallout from Joel's death in episode 2 in the most recent episode titled The Path. Of course, Tommy is also learning of Joel's death as well, and after a few scenes showing the recovery after both Joel's death and the attack on Jackson, we then jump forward 3 months to see how the town is recovering and how Ellie is recovering also. Ellie is forced to talk to Gail before she's let go, and Ellie's kind of a smartass about getting over Joel's death, trying to stay tough, but then she goes home and she breaks down when she sees all of his stuff and realizes he's never coming back home. Just then, Dina walks in and tells Ellie, hey, I know about Abby and the group that killed Joel. She'd kind of held it from her when she was in the hospital because she wanted to wait for the right time to tell her. She calls them the Washington Liberation Front and draws their logo from memory, and Ellie then uses that information to say, hey, let's go to Seattle and let's kill them. However, when recruiting Tommy for the cause to avenge his brother's death, he says, look, we need to follow protocol and we need to talk to the town. Tommy kind of has his own chat with Gail at a Little League baseball game, oddly enough, where he tries to figure out what to do. After some impassioned speeches from both sides at the town gathering, the motion to send a party to get revenge is ultimately shot down 8-3. I assume the 3 that voted yes are Tommy, Jesse, and maybe Maria, but I don't know if she would have done it. I could see her shoot down for the sake of saving Tommy. The biggest advocate in favor of revenge, though, in the crowd was actually Seth, who, if you remember, was the bigot at the party that Joel attacked after Ellie and Dina kissed in episode 1. Seth is now fully on Ellie's side to help in any way possible because he sees it more as we're defending home, we're defending Jackson than anything else. But he does kind of have a limp, and so he can't travel with the party. Ellie and Dina decide, you know what, we're just going to go on our own, and Seth actually ends up helping by way of trading guns with Ellie because he has a nicer sniper rifle, and Ellie and Dina then hit the road to Seattle. Meanwhile, we finally learned a little bit about the 2 main factions we'll see this season. You have the Washington Liberation Front, like I mentioned, and you have the Seraphites. We see some of the Seraphites traveling down the road, and we learn a little bit about them, but we don't know a ton yet, or even exactly what they are, who they are, but we do see them, including the scars on their faces and the jackets they're wearing. They're a very primitive group of people, and you can kind of tell really more of a cult than just a normal group. As Ellie and Dina travel to Seattle, they end up stumbling upon the group that we saw all murdered in the original place. So we think it's the Washington Liberation Front, but we'll see. Then we do see a little of the Washington Liberation Front at the end, and all throughout the episode, it's kind of assumed that maybe the WLF isn't a big force because a lot of the original factions, when things really started up with Fedra and the kind of post-apocalyptic time, a lot of those were more regional and not quite as big a group as the Fireflies. However, the last shot we see is that not only are they a very large group, they have tanks, Hummers, lots of firepower, and plenty of supplies to take control of not only Seattle, but probably much more. We do see Danny Ramirez again for a second as Manny to be on the lookout for people, but we don't see Abby or any of the rest of the group in this episode. In the look ahead, it seems like we'll finally learn a little bit more about Isaac, who's played by Jeffrey Wright, one of my favorite actors today. He's the leader of the WLF and a former Marine. Once again, I haven't played the game, but it does seem like he's a pretty ruthless leader and is very much responsible for the power that the WLF has in taking the city back from Fedra. He also is responsible for a war against the Seraphites in the game, and I don't know what'll come of that, but it does seem like that'll be a major part of the story moving forward now that we've kind of gotten past Joel's death. It looks like we're going to have another large zombie scene in episode 4 from the look ahead with Ellie and Dina trying to escape them. The look ahead shows Dina pointing a gun at Ellie, and I assume that's because she ends up getting bitten again. We know that she's immune, and it seems like the only person that really knew outside of that, though, was Joel. So I'm assuming there's going to be some explaining to do from Ellie to Dina, and from what I know about the game, Dina will have some explaining to do as well if they stick to the script. I know Pedro Pascal is what brought a lot of people to the show, including my wife, but now that he's gone, there isn't as much bringing people in. But personally, I'm always fascinated with how an event like this affects the entire world, not just the one story we focused on so far. There's always so many stories to tell. For instance, the South is largely ignored in this, and I'm in Alabama, so what's happening in SEC country during all of this? I know warmer climates are what ultimately lead to worse consequences from the cordyceps, but it would be interesting to follow some of these other stories should anything else ever come from this IP after they finish this second story, whether it's a game or another TV show. But I'm still engaged enough in this season, especially since this week's episode was more of a send-off to the old story and then pushing ahead with the new story. It seems like in the game, Tommy was actually the one that went off to Seattle first, with Ellie and Dina following him, and then Jesse. So I assume we'll see Tommy and Jesse pop back up at some point soon in the girls' journey to Seattle. But I'm still excited to see how it plays out and still very much invested in the show. So what did you think of the first post-Joel episode, and what are your expectations for the next few episodes now that we're almost halfway into the shortened 7-episode season? Let me know in the comments, and as always, hit that like button so the algorithm sends more great content your way, and make sure to subscribe for more Last of Us recaps, other TV show recaps, movie reviews, and so much more right here on The Pop Culture Life.